Welcome to Wealthy After 40. Ready to ditch debt, retire sooner, and live life on your own terms? Only 54% of Gen Xers feel prepared for retirement, and 22% believe they will live a comfortable lifestyle. So if you're feeling like your finances are a hot mess express, you are not alone. I'm Daleen Higgins, founder of Elevate Finances and money coach for Gen Xers. I reached my dream of retiring at 50 while helping our daughter through college, and now I want to help you do the same. It's time to stop avoiding your finances like the plague and start having confident conversations about money. Join me every week to talk about personal budgeting, debt payoff, saving for retirement, money mindset, and leaving a legacy for future generations. Okay, friends, let's talk money. Hate budgeting? Why you need to find a budgeting method that works for you. That is our topic for today's discussion. Why do we hate budgeting so much? Why does this word make you cringe? While some people, it may not, but I believe that a lot of times our experiences with budgets prior to this time have been in a restrictive mode, used in a controlling setting. These are from experiences that have created our limiting beliefs, and we have shifted to this, and so we just don't want to do it. We don't want to feel that way as we did when we had that prior experience. So that's obviously something separate that individuals need to work through, getting through on that. What I'm hoping today is to give you a different view on budgeting, how it can be helpful in your money life, and how it can help you have a better love of money. So I know some people have called it a spending plan. If that works for you, go that direction. Really, they're one and the same. Making it something so that you don't cringe is the most important thing. So what is a budget? What does it really do? What does it really mean to have a budget? Because most individuals do not have a written plan. Statistics out there say you are more successful if you have it written down. So with that in mind, a budget can help you get to your goals. It can make sure your bills are getting paid. Nothing major there, right? And it can help you live on less than you make, which lends you to being able to do more with your money. So having that eye on your money, having control over your money instead of it controlling you. So how do you find what budgeting method works best for you? I want you to think of these two things first. Before I tell you the 5 budget methods today, I want you to think about what intentions do you have with your money? Where are you at with your money right now? What are your intentions? How deep in the weeds do you want to get? And what I mean by that is, do you love the details? Do you love to dig into the numbers? If that's not you, you're going to choose a different method. If you want it to be very basic, you're going to find a method on here that is simply that. If you are one who wants, even just a few details, you can create that through one of these budget methods as well. So identifying with yourself what you want out of a budget. Now, number one, I believe a budget is important. The caliber of the budget, which is what we're discussing today with the 5 different budget methods, the caliber is what is going to be for you. How deep in the weeds are you going to want to get? How much time are you going to want to spend? All of those different details. Another thing I want to discuss before we go into the budget methods is I know synonymously people are using the word budget for tracking. They are 2 different components of working with your money. A budget is just a plan. It does not take an app to create. It does not, take anything fancy to create. It is just a plan that is written down. To be able to make sure you're working within the budget is called tracking, and these are when the budget apps, and that's probably where the confusion comes from, that is when a budget app becomes helpful. Now, those will be discussed in a future episode, so today is all about creating the plan and determining which plan works for you. And I also want you to know that you may evolve through these methods. You may choose one, and in a year, it may not be working for you. You may want to choose another one. Very quickly, because I will go into detail in this in the future, I was using a cash envelope for several years. I loved it, but then I evolved, right? And so I used a traditional and a budget app. And so I will share more about that in a future episode as well. So to get started with the meat of this episode are the 5 budget methods. So the first one is the percentage method. Now you may have heard this. It's called a 50, 30, 20. And what we mean by those percentages are 50% is going to be for your main living, right? Your bills, your housing, your utilities, your groceries, your fuel, all of those things are going to be 50% of your income. Then the 30% is going to be variable. This is where you add on kind of like an a la carte, right? Like these are your appetizers, these are your extras, which individuals have different ones of these. These are going to be your memberships, your subscriptions, your, maybe your food delivery boxes. All those types of things are going to fall in the 30%. The 30% expenses are those things that basically don't lend to having to survive every day. Basic needs are in 50%, 30% is the, frosting on top of the cake. And then we talk about the 20%. 20% is savings. Savings also can have a different components within it, right? Between cash, investments, 401ks, all of those types of things. That method is 50, 30, 20. You take your income, usually your take-home pay, and you determine 50% of that going to bills, 30% going to your variable expenses, and 20% going to savings. Now, if you have a low income, or you live maybe in a high housing cost area, your percentages are going to be a little slightly different. They are going to be a 70, 20, 10. So again, you do the same thing, 70, 20, 10. 70% is your bills for basic survival, but because you have a lower income or you have a really high cost rent, those types of things, this will be a better percentage for you. And you can leave it as simple as that. You don't need to get into all of the details of what makes up all of those things. It can be as simple as 50, 30, 20. I make sure 20% goes off to savings somewhere. I make sure all my bills are covered. And then I have 30% left, whatever that number is. That's the one I manage. If I keep that, under budget, then everything is met. The second budget method, while it is very simple or similar, should I say, to the percentage method, it is called pay yourself first. So this is an 80-20. You take your actual gross income and make sure 20% of it is going to savings. 80% then gets spent however. So it's not as detailed as the other. It still has a component of savings and is just very, just that. So you start with the 20%, make sure it's going to all the places. You make sure you stay within 80% for bills, variable fund, all of that things. And, you have another great budget method. So again, like I said, if you're not somebody who wants to get into the weeds and into the details, that 80-20 might work perfect for you. And I say this because I love the component that it has savings. And even with the other percentage methods, it covers savings. You've got that taken care of for future. Immediately that takes care of living on less than you make. Might be a new concept to you. I will talk about it in a future episode, savings as a whole, but those percentage methods and then the pay yourself first. Very easy to calculate on a piece of paper or in a spreadsheet. That's all you need to make a budget. So don't make it difficult on yourself in looking at those apps yet, right? Stage 1, pen and paper or a spreadsheet. The third method I have, this one is where you're going to get in the weeds. This is one for looking at historical, you're going to know your current spending habits as of today, and then you're going to work from there. So it's called the traditional. You take 3 months of your statements where all your expenses are, and you categorize those. Now, how many categories you put that in is totally up to you, but you start identifying all of those for 3 months. Then you have a total that you again divide by 3, so you get your average for the month, and there is your budget. This is a great method for those who maybe have overspent a lot, for those who don't understand where their money is going. But it does take some more time. So again, if you're not somebody who wants to devote time to this, I would not choose this. If you're interested in where your money is going, it is probably only going to take you, because you're familiar with your expenses. I do this for my clients. I go through 3 months of their expenses. Sometimes they have, 2 or 3 bank accounts and 2 or 3 credit cards, and I categorize them. For myself, it takes about an hour, but where you're already familiar with all of those, because those codes on those statements sometimes are not as clear to somebody else looking at it, but because you've had it, you've seen it, I would guess 20 to 30 minutes max, you could have that done, and it gives you a better jumping off point. And then from there, you can make the adjustments netting against your income. So again, that's the traditional method, using historical expenses, creating yourself a current budget from your current spending habits. You may find some discoveries there that you need to correct, or maybe you're doing better than you thought. That is what I love about this method. It is very revealing, but it gets to the heart of everything. Those other budget with the percentages, you just get started off, right? And then you kind of have to figure out the quirks after that. So it's just about getting the job done, and any of those work. A second one, or the fourth one, values and goals. That is all you're budgeting for. Yes, you may want to go traditional on this and look at your past expenses, or you may just think in general. Okay, think about your expenses that you have, the things that you love to do, of your things that you are paying money for. What do you value the most? And are you, actually directed to a goal? Are you making sure that's incorporated in your budget? I love to start with just the regular bills. Usually most everybody can do those very simply. You put the bills down, you have an amount left over. From here, you take all of the things that you love to spend your money on, and you start with prioritizing those. 1 to 10, 1 to 20, however many you have. Maybe you have a list of 20 and you put in the top, let's say 13, and it's getting a little squeaky, right? Well, you've already prioritized. So those things that are coming up are things that you don't care about as much as you did about number 1 and number 2. So if you're maybe feeling differently, you might need to go back, check how you've prioritized, make sure you're working with your family on this, and just do it off of values. Then you can say, I spend my money on the things I value. I was working with a client recently. We really had to scale back. And I said, this is the list of things that, not all of them need to go, but these are the list of things that need to go. We can fit in a few. And immediately he was like, I have to have my Apple Music. So I said, okay, we'll put it in. You got to give up something else though. And it's that trade-off as you're starting to funnel down to the direction you really want to go. So values and goals, it can be as simply as just making sure everything you spend your money on is of value to you, that it's not just a bill you have created because, your neighbor was doing it, your friend was doing it, whatever it might be, right? Really, you're going into your soul, really going into your heart and determining what do you value most, and then what are your goals? A lot of times with budgets, we get so focused on the month that, I think we also need to look at the future. And I'm not talking about the entire year, right? Yes, I want you to look at that, but I'm talking about 5, 10, 15, 20. What are your goals for each of those increments? And do you need to start putting those in your budget today? I love that one. It takes a lot more pondering time. You might have to fill it out, think it out, write it out. But it can be a very soul-searching method for you to do. And the last budget method is cash envelopes. How I love to do cash envelopes is all my bills are on auto pay. I did use my debit card for my gas because I didn't want to take the extra time to walk in with cash. And then everything else was in a cash envelope, all of my variable. Why I love cash envelopes? It's a very visual. It's a very touch-feely transactions. You go to the bank, you get the money, you put them in the envelopes, you use that envelope when you go to the grocery store, you're visibly seeing this money spent. There's a deeper connection, and if you have felt aloof about your money, this one might be for you. This one might direct you to get a grip on, your money in general. And like I said, you will evolve through some of these methods. You can use a hybrid of these methods. Let me review those 5 really quick and just share, because I don't think I did it on the first ones, maybe a little bit, like who it's best for. So your percentage method, if you're somebody who doesn't want to take the time to create that initial budget, start with a percentage method. If you know your housing and rent is high or that you have a very low income, you're going to want to do the 70-20-10 as opposed to the 50-30-20. Just get going, right? Don't delay. Typed up a post today and I was like, don't let some of your thoughts limit your actions. Just start with what you know very simply. Start making it work. Get going. As you do, you'll realize what changes you need to make. Pay yourself first is the 80-20. Very simple, right? If you're like, I just want to make sure I'm saving and I don't care about anything else, then you've got that. Traditional, you are, reviewing the past. This is for somebody who might feel like they're overspending or somebody who's always turning to their credit card because their paycheck is not quite making it from, month to month or biweekly to biweekly, whatever it may be. So traditional would be very good for you. Not saying you couldn't do it through the percentage method either because you still have a framework. So however you develop that framework and then start working with it, you'll start discovering a lot about yourself. Values and goals. This just gets to the heart of you. It's a lot more for those who have deep thoughts, who can, reach into their heart and their soul and really view money in that aspect as opposed to, the black and white numbers. So, and cash envelopes, I would say, anybody could use these. If you're, a young family, if you're somebody who struggles with overspending, this is another good one. And you don't have to use cash for everything either. So again, like I said, a hybrid. You can use a cash envelope for, let's say, your clothing or your entertainment, because maybe that's where you tend to spend more, and just limiting yourself. It's called putting barriers, right? Restrictions, that friction in there. And helping you to really start tuning into your money habits. Those are the 5 budget methods, and I challenge you to take one or a hybrid of them and get yourself started today. Write it down. People take action more likely if they have written down a plan than if they, just think it in their head. So I challenge you to write it down. Restrictive. We talked about that at the first. How do you get past the mindset that it might feel restrictive? This is a quote from the book Happy Money, The Science of Happier Spending by Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton. So the authors discuss about how placing limits on our financial fun actually makes us happier. So they go on to state, we enjoy the little pleasures in life like massages, Belgian chocolates, fancy lattes, and more. So anything of yours that you feel like is a pleasure, you will enjoy them more if you participate or get those less often. You've heard the saying, familiarity breeds contempt. When we have unlimited access to these types of treats, they cease to be treats and become part of our routines. Many people get into financial trouble because they haven't put reasonable limits on their spending. So I challenge you to also maybe add in that treat section. Fun is always allowed in a budget, but it shouldn't be the meat of your budget. It should be something that you can easily work towards. I believe people can get into trouble if they have not learned to delay gratification. With social media, there's a lot of instant gratification, especially with Amazon delivery the next day. It's such a more quickly gratifying moment than, back in time. So delaying your gratification, restricting your fun treats, and actually placing a limit on them, not removing them from your budget, right? This is not about saying, you can't have lattes, you can't have this. So I want you to just think about what you enjoyed doing. What is a treat to you? And think in your mind, if you are spending money on it, in a treat status or in a daily status. So, 2 tips I'm going to leave you with at the end of this episode. Regardless of your budgeting method that you choose, be sure you are working towards at least one future goal, and be sure to add a fun line. Again, I talked about putting reasonable limits on that, but know that you should be budgeting for fun, for treats, so that you can enjoy your hard-earned money. Thanks for listening. Every week, my goal is to help you get one step closer to financial freedom and making confident decisions so your money starts working for you. Want more exclusive tips, trainings, and resources to help you hit your financial goals fast? Grab my free resource at elevatefinances.us/subscribe and receive best tips and tools in your inbox weekly. And if you're not already in our free Facebook community, you can find us by searching All Things Personal Finance on Facebook. In this group, we have weekly lives, occasional money challenges, and answer any questions regarding money. And if you're looking for personalized support to get your finances on track for retirement, check out my website at elevatefinances.us to learn more about one-on-one coaching.